Remember when the world didn't hate Game of Thrones? Remember when it was highly regarded? Seeing how it ended, I think it becomes much more obvious that the show always had its flaws from the beginning, which makes it very easy to retrospectively write the entire thing off. And who could blame you? Season 8 killed a lot of people's love for what had previously been cherished. But I still want to break down one of my favourite scenes from the show, because A, it's a really good scene, B, I'm working on an in-depth psychological analysis of Sansa from the books and show, and this seems a good video to make in the run-up to that, and C, because I said I would do this quite some time ago. I made a secret list of my top 10 scenes from the show. I then made a scene analysis breaking down number 10 from that list, which was Tyrion telling Cersei,
"Your joy will turn to ashes in your mouth."
Today is number 9. Sort of. You'll see what I mean by sort of in a moment, but right now that scene is Theon revealing the bodies of the farmer's boys. Harrowing moment, beautifully executed. For context, Theon and the Ironborn have come and captured the castle Winterfell and taken its lords Bran and Rickon, both children, as hostages, only for Osha and Hodor to later be able to help Bran and Rickon escape. Theon needs those kids as hostages. They're valuable, they make Winterfell worth holding and easier to hold when you have them, but he can't find where they've escaped to. So in his desperation, he burns the 2 sons of a nearby farmer to make everyone think he did capture Bran and Rickon and burns them as punishment. It's a wonderful scene because it displays all of Theon's internal conflict perfectly within a single look. He wants the people of Winterfell to fear and respect him. In all of his scenes at Winterfell, there is a slight theatre feel to his performance. Like he's trying really hard to put on a show of being a fearsome commander, rather than him actually genuinely feeling fearsome. Even in the last episode before this one, when he executed Sir Roderick to make clear that he means business, he's not afraid to kill someone, that was something his first mate had to talk him into.
I cannot let that stand, he must pay.
I'll lock him in a cell until he rots right.
They'll never respect you while he lives.
So Theon is as much trying to earn their respect as he is the people of Winterfell's, as he is his father's respect. Every decision he's making is based on trying not to look weak, and it digs him into a deeper and deeper hole that he cannot get out of. But yeah, the point is we get this theatre-like performance that curiously does not show us Theon's face to begin with.
Told you what would happen. All of you.
We see his face from the side or at a distance for a brief moment, or the camera just focusing much more on the crowd and Maester Luwin until...
Here is the answer to your question.
Theon is just as horrified as the crowd is, as the audience is, because right now there's zero reason to believe that this isn't Bran and Rickon. The show had already built its reputation for killing off important characters, and I think Theon's look of guilt and horror could also lead you to believe he has murdered what were effectively his brothers. Theon is a Greyjoy of the Ironborn, but he was raised by the Starks at Winterfell. On the one hand, he sees them as family. He went to war serving Robb Stark like a brother. On the other hand, he is a Greyjoy who wants his father's respect and that of the Ironborn. And so you have this conflict of killing off one half of his past, I suppose, the Winterfell side of his family, in order to come into his own as a man as he sees it. And yes, retrospectively we know Bran and Rickon have not been killed. Theon knows they haven't been killed. These are 2 farmers' boys, but he still feels horrified by what he's done. And I think that's important as well. For a character in this show who has sometimes with a slight pompous attitude look down on those of a lower class to him, it's nice to see beneath all of that pomposity he does think more of them than that. The music though, Luwin's single, perfectly performed scream. This scene could have easily gone overboard there, but it doesn't. The fact Theon, who has been so talkative, so loud and theatrical since his return to Winterfell, now finally falls silent. It's a genuinely harrowing way to end an episode beautifully done. The problem is, that's kind of all there is to say about the scene in itself, really. It's incredibly short, so hopefully see you next. No, we're going to talk more about some of the build up to this, because I think there's something really interesting before and after this moment that I want to talk about. Something that informs all of this. So that's the plan now. Let's get started.
My lord, over here. I think I found what we're looking for.
Yes, WorldAnvil are still sponsoring me. This is a company I genuinely love. I'm going to keep promoting and supporting them as long as I physically can. And all of you are going to listen intently. WorldAnvil is an online tool for world building, character creation, story planning and writing, campaign building and playing lots of different games. A load of useful stuff. I use it for my novel with the sprawling mess all of my world building turned into, and even just like, I was keen on my fictional town having a strong sense of community, so there was pages after page of who lives where, what do they think of their neighbours, where do they work, what are their opinions on local gossip. I don't know, a very big sprawling mess that WorldAnvil can really help to organise with hyperlinks, different categories, timelines. You can even completely build out of your own designed calendars. Again, with hyperlinks attached to other articles and a map to link the different timeline events too, if you fancy that. When there is so much detail, it is hard to remember it all, and having something like this to just quickly glance at and see what happens where and when becomes so damn handy. And there are other tools as well. I've not used all of them yet myself, but all the ones I have used are pretty straightforward. They do have lots of tutorials for how to use everything, but I've never needed to watch them. I've just figured it out myself pretty easily. There is a link in the description, and as a pinned comment there is the code TREE, which entitles you to 40% off any of their yearly subscriptions. And if you want to try it out first, they have a free version. Test that out for as long as you like first. Get familiar with WorldAnvil. You know, if you're interested, click the link. WorldAnvil. So Theon is a complicated character that I'll absolutely have to do a psychological analysis on someday. I'm not even going to try and cram all of him into this video, but when people talk about Theon's motivations, why did he take Winterfell? Why did he capture the home from the family who raised him, from the people he grew up with? I think people often point to Theon's father as the main motivation, and they are probably right. His dad, Theon Greyjoy, started a rebellion against the kingdom that was quickly put down, and in order to keep Balon in check, his only surviving son, Theon, was taken away from him, still a child to be raised by Eddard Stark of Winterfell instead. Therefore then half a hostage to discourage Balon from rebelling again, but also instilling different values in Theon, helping him form a stronger bond with the North, which might be helpful should he one day become lord of his father's lands. Balon Greyjoy's rebellion was a stupid, hopeless thing to attempt that lost him a lot of face. Some of that shame he almost certainly projects onto Theon, who, finally getting the chance to go home as a grown man now, is treated like an outsider, like an alien. His father looks down on him as weak and being a northerner, not an Ironborn. His sister ridicules him, the people ignore him. Even when he is very quickly manipulated into fighting with the Ironborn instead of the North, he is given responsibility of nothing more than a tiny ship and a little crew to raid fishing villages. It feels like a disgrace to someone who is meant to be the heir, and then in his quest to prove himself strong and more worthy, he loses himself. Yes, that is all true, but there is also another motivation that I love the show understood well enough to properly portray. Because the thing is, all of this is Theon's descent. As a viewer, we can easily see he is making a mistake. This is bad, betraying Winterfell. You can understand why he makes that mistake, but you don't entirely feel with him on that, you know? Except in this really cool scene at the docks. Theon walking into shot and smiling. Genuinely smiling. We don't at first see what he's smiling at, but then it's revealed. A ship. The sea. Such a nice, brief, hopeful moment of Theon remembering how much he has missed the sea. It's not just shame and a need for respect that leads him to betray the Starks, it's also the dreamy, nostalgic hope of reconnecting to the things he once loved. Problem is, he turns around. Before he can go forwards to that ship, he has to deal with the crew behind him. That positioning is nice. It's a crew that completely ignores him. Also, with the use of height and positioning on the steps to inform this, Theon is up on high ground, bellowing down, trying to seem powerful, but instead of that height making him look strong, it just places him at a total distance to them. And this man very easily climbs the steps to meet him, showing how little this height, this sense of birthright really means to them. Then Yara turns up to mock him a little, and then Dagmar appears to throw him out, and realising that Dagmar is not hostile or mocking, Theon opens up, venting his frustration that his father is only trusting him to raid tiny fishing villages. How can he prove he's a true Island Islander doing just that?
They're all Iron Islanders. Do they do as they're told? Do they do as they like?
That makes Theon pause. Beautifully paced pause as well. Look, here's what I'm coming to. Theon making this general big mistake that will see him betray the Starks. That doesn't feel like a mistake to Theon right now, otherwise he probably wouldn't do it, it feels like growth to him. A lot of the time people do bad things because they think they're doing good. And what's great about this scene is that it illustrates that by giving you a really positive, hopeful feel to Theon's character. Iron Islanders don't do as they're told, they do as they like. AKA Theon is free to be himself, that's how it feels. Not following the orders of Northerners, but not having to follow the orders of his father either. What does he himself want to do?
Stony Shore's not far from Torrent Square.
Why raid fishing villages when he thinks he could take an entire fort? That would feel like growing into a man, an experienced fighter, a strategic commander who can make his mark on the world and earn the respect of his crew, but he wants to do more than just raid, so he pauses.
You don't think we could take it?
We can never hold it for more than a few days. As soon as Winterfell got word that we'd taken Torrent Square, the Starks would send their men to take it back.
So he pauses again, thinking even more, and finally offering another smile. I suppose that's the other side of this really. His plan to take Winterfell is a clever plan. Taking a castle as well defended as that with just 20 men is impressive. It's a really good idea, even if it's not actually explained how he does it in the show. Okay, bigger picture thinking it's not a great move politically, but as a strategic plan in itself, it shows Theon has some real tactical nous. To pull something like that off, something he can feel proud of. No wonder he smiles. What is more satisfying than a good plan coming together? Especially when it's an underdog story of 20 random Ironborn taking the esteemed castle of the North. They're both smiling. Theon says,
"Take me to my ship."
And it feels so much like that bit in action films where the heroes come together and finally have their plan. Where Aragorn presents his plan to create a diversion. The trick of this scene is that it feels so positive for something that will ultimately be so tragic. And it is important to say that this is a plan Theon is proud of. It's one of the many reasons he opts to stay and hold Winterfell rather than leave it to go back home with his sister. Not just because he's trying to dig himself out of a hole, not just because he doesn't want to look weak and lose face in heading home, not even just because of what Winterfell means to him personally, but also alongside all of that, he is proud of how effectively he took the castle and he doesn't want to see that as a mistake. Which is where we have to mention the music properly, because this scene and this scene have the same melody. I went and looked at the soundtracks from season 2. Here we have the piece What Is Dead May Never Die, where these fast, I don't know, saw-like violins are played over the top of some powerful drums and what I think is either cello or more violins underneath it. I know nothing about music, but that music underneath the violins makes it all really stirring and hopeful and like something coming together as this powerful force of nature. But this scene has the song Paying the Iron Price, which is the same basic violin piece except the music underneath here is chilling, disturbing. The violin becomes more frantic and it sounds less like something powerful coming together than like something spinning out of control. Terrifying, dizzying feel to it that takes what was a hopeful piece about Theon's ambition and aspiring to be a fierce and respected commander, and then twists it into a tragic piece about the reality of where that aspiration has led him, or at least how warped it has all become. Super powerful use of the same melody, and I think this is all so well executed. But yeah, let me know your thoughts, what I've missed, what I got wrong, what was good. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe, support me on Patreon maybe, but otherwise, hopefully see you next time. And as ever, a special thank you goes to Luke Hoare, Treat Trukaba, Michael Gallagher, Flying Spider, Kellyanne Davidson, Billy Lee Myers Jr., Samara Salsi, Joshua C. Follier, Chad Bramwell and Michael Hart. Thank you.